Hi there, folks. Welcome to my live stream. My name is Jim, and I used to be a type 2 diabetic, and I love saying that. I absolutely love saying it. In fact, if you've ever watched one of my live streams, you've heard me say that a number of different times. I love saying it. I used to be a type 2 diabetic, and I say that I have reversed it. If you like the word reversal, if you've heard the word reversal, I've reversed it. I'm in remission from it. I don't take medications anymore. That's because my doctor told me I don't have to. So however you want to word it, I just don't have it anymore. And I love doing live streams and telling people exactly what it is that I do to achieve that. Now, here's the deal. If you've been invited to this live stream, it means that somebody thinks that the information that I'm going to share here could be valuable to you. And I try to be entertaining, but I also try to be really, really informative. And so give me your ear for an hour or so. And I'm hoping you walk away from this live stream with more information than you had when you started this live stream. And hopefully this is beneficial to you. And let's change lives. That's my entire goal. Okay, so what did I do to reverse type 2 diabetes? Well, the first thing I did was started focusing on the problem. What is the problem? What causes type 2 diabetes? Well, and by the way, let me add to this. We aren't just going to be talking about type 2 diabetes. We're going to be talking about a lot of things, okay? Obesity and heart disease and all sorts of things. So, but type 2 diabetes. So what did I do to reverse type 2 diabetes? I started focusing on a problem, and that's something called insulin resistance. Now, this is really interesting because when I was a type 2 diabetic, nobody ever told me what insulin resistance was. I never even heard the term. And that's shocking considering it's what causes the type 2. Okay, so, and once I started understanding that, well, everything kind of fell into place pretty easily. So what is insulin resistance? Well, to understand that, we kind of have to start with what is insulin. And again, as a type 2 diabetic, I didn't even know really what that was. What I did know was that when I got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, I had a 12.2% A1C, and I had this physician in the doctor's office with me, shaking his finger at me, and he said, "You're going to be a lifelong insulin dependent." And that was terrifying. I didn't really know what that meant. Honestly, what went through my mind, this is sad and pathetic, but what went through my mind was, like, do I have to carry a cooler now? Because I think insulin has to be refrigerated. Do I have to carry a cooler? Like, how do I go on vacation? My mind was so shocked. And then after that, I'm going to add something into this that, after that, something that that hit me, and he kind of really gave it to me. He was yelling, not yelling, but he was being very stern with me because I had a 459 LDL as well, which is just through the roof. And he told me, he said, "You're going to abandon your family. I don't know what kind of joke you think this is, but you're going to abandon your family. You're going to leave this wife and these children." And it terrified me. And when he said that, I immediately thought of my oldest daughter, she's beautiful and she's gonna get married. And I thought, who's gonna give her away? And then my next thought went to my younger daughter, and the same exact thing. I thought, who's gonna give her away? And then I thought of my older son, he's stout. He's a big boy. He's a strong man. And I thought, well, he can take care of himself. This isn't that big of a deal. He'll just take over. He'll be the man of the family now, right? And that's where my mind was going. And then I thought about my youngest son, who was real young at the time, 6, ish. And I thought, well, who's going to raise him? Who's going to teach him the values that I want to teach him if I'm not here? And then the last piece was my beautiful bride sitting right next to me. And I thought to myself, who's going to marry my wife? And when I started to go down that path of who's going to take care of my family in my absence, and it became immediately, it was like, I'll do what I got to do. What do I got to? I understand at some point I'm going to have to check out, but I'm not ready yet. So what do I have to do? And I just became a very obedient person. I started taking medications. I took, a 4.5 milligram pen of Trulicity once a week. I took 2,000 milligrams of metformin every day. I took 40 milligrams of rosuvastatin calcium for my cholesterol every day. That's also the generic for Lipitor. Maybe you've heard of Crestor. I'm sorry. Maybe you're on a Torvastatin, the generic for Lipitor. There's also Zocor and all these other ones. So, and I'm kind of going off rail here a little bit, but I hope you're enjoying a little bit of this story. That was where my mind was. I'm just going to do whatever it takes. Well, throughout all this process, nobody ever mentioned what was insulin resistant, and nobody ever educated me on insulin. What was insulin? And I had heard of insulin. My sister-in-law was a type 1 diabetic, and I knew that she had to use insulin. And I'd come across some friends whose parents were type 2 diabetics, and they were on insulin. And that was really all I knew about insulin. I was pretty naive to it. So let's talk about what is insulin. Let's just start there, okay? So first off, insulin's a hormone. In fact, it's the most active hormone in your body. I guess I always thought testosterone was the most active hormone, but in fact, it's insulin. Insulin literally touches every single cell in your body. Now, one of the jobs of insulin is to act as, it helps regulate blood glucose. So let's go down that path, because I was talking about type 2 diabetes. So when you consume a carbohydrate, something like a slice of bread or a cookie, something like that, your body converts that carbohydrate into sugar. Now, there are all kinds of sugar. Of course, we've heard of sucrose. That's your table sugar, the white sugar, powdered sugar on your table. Then you've got fructose. That's the kind of sugar that comes in an apple. There is lactose, right? Lactose intolerance, the sugar from dairy. And then there is allulose. And I love to talk about allulose all the time, because allulose it's an amazing sugar, okay? It is a real sugar. It's not a sugar substitute. It's not quite as sweet as sucrose, but it is sweet. You can use it for baking. You can use it in your coffee. You can use it in your tea. You can use it like regular sugar, because it is sugar. It's not quite as sweet, so it takes a little bit more to hit the sweet notes that sucrose has. But here's the thing with it, is allulose does not affect your glucose. It doesn't up your glucose. That's what we're going to talk a lot about. But it does affect your GLP-1. You may have heard of GLP-1, this new class of drugs, right? Like Ozempic and Mounjaro and Trulicity, which is what I was on. Those are all GLP-1 receptor agonists. They are synthetic forms of a hormone that your body makes. Well, allulose induces that hormone. So it actually increases your GLP-1. So allulose is kind of this amazing sugar. It doesn't affect your glucose, but it does affect your GLP-1. Anyway, now I mentioned glucose. That's the path we're going down. We're going to talk about glucose. So when you consume the carbohydrate, your body converts it into glucose, and that glucose goes out to your bloodstream. Now, glucose is a very, very important type of sugar, because it's the type of sugar that your cells use for energy. They have to have the glucose. That's their fuel source. However, they are locked. they can't just get the glucose. They have to be unlocked. That's one of the roles of insulin. So anytime there is glucose present in the bloodstream, it signals the pancreas to secrete the hormone insulin. And it does. And so the pancreas secretes the hormone insulin. It goes out to the bloodstream. It reacts with the cells. It kind of unlocks the cell and allows the cells to absorb the glucose. And so what happens next? The glucose levels begin to normalize. They decline. They begin to normalize. And then what happens? Well, the insulin level, again, it's a hormone, so it takes a longer period of time, but it begins to normalize as well. Now, that is an absolutely perfect world. And every week I like to get on here and talk about imperfect worlds because Lord knows we're in an imperfect world. So let's talk about imperfection. What happens when things don't go as planned? You consume that carbohydrate, your body converts it into glucose. The glucose goes out to the bloodstream like it should, and that signals the pancreas to secrete insulin, but nothing happens. The pancreas doesn't secrete any insulin whatsoever. What happens next? Well, there's nothing there to unlock the cell. And so the glucose never normalizes. It never declines. In fact, it starts increasing more and more and more. That's something called hyperglycemia, elevated glucose. And as you become more and more and more hyperglycemic in the absence of insulin, well, it becomes toxic. And at some point, it will kill the type 1 diabetic. That's the type 1 diabetic's problem. So what does the type 1 diabetic do? They inject themselves with insulin, a synthetic form of insulin. And what they're doing is they're kind of taking a guess at how many carbs they've had for the day and injecting the proper amount of insulin to unlock the cells. It's an imperfect math. And the better they get at it, the more they do it and the more consistent they get good at knowing how much insulin they have to give themselves. But you know what they really watch? The constant that they watch is their carbohydrate intake. Why? Because that converts to sugar really, really quick. Okay, so that's the type 1 diabetic. Let's talk about the type 2 diabetic, the person on the other end of the spectrum. That's me. So the type 2 diabetic, they consume the carbohydrate. The body converts it into glucose. Just like everybody else, the glucose goes out to the bloodstream. Just like everybody else, that signals the pancreas to secrete insulin. Just like everybody else, this time the insulin gets secreted. It actually does its job. The insulin goes out to the bloodstream, but it doesn't respond with the cell. The cell doesn't react with it properly. The cell is insulin resistant. It's like it's got the blinders on, right? The earmuffs, the blinders, it doesn't react with the insulin. The cell doesn't get unlocked. And so what happens next? A lot like the type 1 diabetic, the glucose levels don't normalize because the cells are still locked. In fact, they start to climb, just like the type 1 diabetic. However, unlike the type 1 diabetic, what causes the pancreas to secrete insulin? That. Rising glucose. So as the type 2 is becoming more and more and more hyperglycemic, their pancreas is secreting more and more and more insulin. That condition is called hyperinsulinemia, elevated insulin. And so while they are hyperglycemic, they are also hyperinsulinemic. And the hyperinsulinemia, that is the core root. That's the root cause. That's the problem. That abundance of insulin in the bloodstream is causing the cell to become resistant. That's what causes the cell to start resisting the insulin. And so if you want to resensitize the cell to the insulin, well, you start lowering the insulin in the bloodstream. Now, here's the thing is you've probably been taught, hey, I need to focus on the glucose. Never even heard about insulin, right? That was me. Never even heard about insulin. All we heard about was the glucose. That's what we call a glucose-centric approach to treating type 2 diabetes, right? We're just focused about the glucose. Who cares how much insulin it takes so long as the glucose gets normalized? Well, that's dangerous because the insulin is the problem. That elevated hyperinsulinemia is causing havoc inside of your body. It's causing all sorts of damage. And we're going to talk about that damage right now. So we've talked about what is insulin resistance, what causes insulin resistance, and then, of course, what does insulin resistance cause? To get down that path, I want to ask well, let me introduce somebody here first. I want to talk about this guy right here, and I talk about him pretty regularly on my live streams. If you've watched any of my live streams, you've seen me talk about this guy. What I want to do is go to Google and just type into Google Dr. Ben Bikman. Okay, and the Google AI overview says Dr. Ben Bikman, PhD, that's a person holding doctorate, is a prominent Brigham Young University professor and researcher focusing on metabolic health, specifically the role of insulin resistance in chronic disease and obesity. So, insulin resistance, right there. That's what he focuses on. Now, if we go just a little bit further, maybe you've never heard of Brigham Young University, but BYU is the biggest university in Utah. If it's not the biggest, it's number 2 to the University of Utah. It's huge. So BYU, well, this is Dr. Bikman's profile on their website. And you'll see he's a professor of cell biology and physiology. Well, we're talking about cell biology. That's what we're talking about, is the reaction, the relationship between cell and insulin. Well, that's what this guy does. In fact, if you just scroll down a little bit, you'll see his research interests, the focus of my lab, which is the Laboratory of Obesity and Metabolism. And I want to just ask the quick question. Everybody that's listening here, how many of you have an interest in obesity and metabolism, like what this guy studies? An interest in shrinking the fat cell? Okay. Now, what he really does is he grows fat cells for a living. That literally is what Dr. Ben Bikman does. And then he looks at the disease that accompanies that. Now, you're asking yourself, we're talking about fat cells, we're talking about diabetes. How does insulin come into play here? What I'm going to do is I'm going to have Dr. Bikman explain that for us. This is on my YouTube, and I would encourage anybody to go check out my YouTube. It's the Healthy Pitmaster. You can go find this video and listen to it for yourself. But this is Dr. Ben Bikman talking about growing fat cells in his laboratory.
First thing, and this will blow some minds, you cannot have a fat cell grow unless insulin is elevated. It is totally, completely, utterly impossible. Now, I know people want to say, oh, well, calories matter too. They do matter. But if you just take out that one single variable, if you deprive a fat cell of insulin, it cannot grow. 100% full stop. Take this from a guy who literally grows fat cells in my lab all the time. In a human model, you even see this. If you have a person with type 1 diabetes, they can eat 10,000 calories in a day. And all they do is skip an insulin injection and they will be as skinny as they want. In fact, this is so well known to that diabetic that it's a known eating disorder. It's more of a hormone disorder. But if they just skip their insulin injection, they'll be as skinny as they want. It's a condition called diabulimia. You only eliminate one single variable, the insulin. They cannot not only grow fat, they can't even hold on to it. So as much as calories matter, and they do, insulin is an absolutely necessary signal to tell the fat cell to grow.
Now, how interesting is that? And the reason I like to play that video is if we go back to Dr. Ben Bikman's website here on BYU, he talks about paying particular emphasis to the etiology of insulin resistance. In fact, if you just scroll down on his page a little bit, you'll see all of the courses that Dr. Ben Bikman has taught at BYU. And this is an impressive resume. In fact, if you are a type 2 diabetic and you see an endocrinologist, well, that's one of the courses that Dr. Ben Bikman teaches. He teaches your endocrinologist endocrinology. That's what he does. Look at all of these courses. It is absolutely ridiculous what this guy does. Now, if you're looking for scientific publications, Dr. Bikman's also been published more than 30 times on the topic of insulin resistance. In fact, this is the world's top metabolic scientist. And so a lot of the information I'm going to be talking about here comes from him. I'm just some random dude on a live stream, but I like to point out the research that Dr. Ben Bikman has done. Now, if we go just a little step further, we'll see his website. He has a website called insuliniq.com. This is a great website. I have no affiliation with it. I make no money off of this website, and I encourage everybody to join it. You can also purchase his book. Again, I don't get any affiliation, no affiliation with him, but it's an amazing book. It's called Why We Get Sick. the information that Dr. Bickman shares in there, and he cites the studies that he's talking about, is amazing. It will change the quality of your life just reading that book. Now, let's tie this all back in. If we go back to Dr. Bickman's profile on BYU, because he cannot grow a fat cell without the use of insulin, well, he studies insulin. I got this image from Dr. Bickman's website. And I want to ask the question to everybody listening right now. If you're listening right now, how many of these conditions that Dr. Bickman says are caused ultimately by insulin resistance, how many of these conditions do you have? If you've got one of them, type the number 1. If you've got 2 of them, type the number 2. Just give us an idea as to how many of these you've actually got. Now, when I started, I had type 2 diabetes. I had extremely high cholesterol. I was definitely obese. I had migraine headaches. I had fatty liver. I had arthritis. And I had high blood pressure. So I had 7 of those just in one. And here's the deal. I was medicating type 2 diabetes. I was medicating my cholesterol, my heart disease. I was medicating obesity effectively with the Trulicity. I was medicating migraines with, what was I taking? 800 milligrams a day of ibuprofen. I was medicating my blood pressure with losartan. I was medicating all of these conditions, but I wasn't doing anything about the root cause. How many of you can relate to that? And guess what? Over time, because I wasn't dealing with the root cause, well, the conditions didn't get better. In fact, they got worse. And eventually they outgrew the medication that I was suppressing them with. And what you start to see when you really look at this image is that type 2 diabetes is more of a symptom of insulin resistance. In fact, Dr. Bickman says that insulin resistance, no matter how far gone you think you are, you can always reverse insulin resistance. That's absolutely crazy, isn't it? So that is just a powerful thing. And once you realize that, hey, I can reverse this, well, tell me more. Okay, let me turn this image off. So that's what we're going to go down. We're going to start talking about how do you reverse insulin resistance? And if you can do that, all of those other things just get better. They get better. Okay, so I want to recap. I'm going to talk a little bit about, well, I'm going to talk a lot of bit about the Unicity Feel Great system. So buckle up. I'm going to go in and I'm going to explain the science behind that product and how it works. And I like to really cite research, actual real research that involves these products. So you can actually go and do the research for yourself, and you can read, you know, the people that are the top of their game that are studying this product, and you can go do the research and find out for yourself. So let's start here. How do we reverse insulin resistance? Let me grab a drink. By the way, I'm sipping on the Unimate, the tea. It's absolutely amazing. It is 5:21, I guess, here in Denver, Colorado. I would never drink coffee after like 1 o'clock in the afternoon because I wouldn't sleep. I'm sipping Unimate. The caffeine hits different in this. I'll drink this until 9 o'clock at night. Okay, let's talk about this. What the Feel Great system is 2 great products, 1 great practice. Let's dive in on the practice. I want to ask a question. Delaney said she had one of those. I want to ask a question, and I'm just going to ask you guys to type in the comment section, relatable or not, okay? And what I'm going to try and do, what I'm going to attempt to do, is describe the standard American diet. And unfortunately, this isn't the standard American diet anymore. This is the standard Earth diet. But let's just talk about the standard American diet. We wake up in the morning and we start with a cup of sugary coffee. Is that fair? We go downstairs and we grab a slice of toast. Maybe we don't have a slice of toast. Maybe we have a bowl of cereal or a bowl of oatmeal. Maybe we do something that's awful and do like Pop-Tarts or something like that. Maybe we do a slice of white bread with sugary jelly on top of that, and the cup of sugary coffee and the glass of sugary orange juice. All of that sugar. And so what did we do first thing in the morning? Literally, like the first thing we could have done in the morning was we spiked our glucose. Now let me just add in here real quick a little nugget for the information block, right? Your body needs about 1 teaspoon of sugar at any given moment to be considered perfectly regulated. 1 teaspoon. What I just described was like 20 teaspoons. Like right out the gate, the first thing we do early in the morning is instead of having the 1 teaspoon in our bloodstream, we've got 20. And so what does that do? That causes this huge glucose spike. And then what happens with the insulin? Remember hyperinsulinemia? Well, right out the gate, we get this huge insulin response. We are hyperinsulinemic right away. Now, remember, insulin is a hormone and it doesn't normalize right away. It might take 6 or 8 or more hours if you're sick. If you are insulin resistant, it could take 6 or 8 or more hours for it to kind of normalize. Do we ever give our body 6 to 8 hours? No. Because what do? We have a healthy snack early in the morning. We go and after we've had all that sugar, an hour or 2 later, we go and grab a granola bar, or we grab a donut, or we grab a bagel. Maybe we have a second cup of sugary coffee. Maybe we have a second glass of orange juice. What is it? It's just more sugar. And so we have that initial glucose spike, and then a couple hours, we do it again. And then we do it again. And then we get to lunchtime, and what do we have for lunch? We have starchy, sugary, carbohydrate-laden meals. Another sugary spike. Boom. And so every time we're doing this to our sugar, what are we doing to our insulin? Well, the insulin never has an opportunity to come down. It stays in this chronically elevated state all day long, from beginning to end, morning until night, from dawn until dusk. We got our insulin just absolutely pegged to the ceiling all day long. Because what do we have for lunch? White bread, potatoes, whether that's a burger and fries, whether that's a sandwich and chips. And then what do we have mid-afternoon? The energy crash when you want to take a nap at your office and you just can't because your boss doesn't, they frown upon that. So what do? We grab a candy bar, we grab a Coca-Cola, we grab something with more sugar. We cause another sugar spike. And then we get to dinner, and what's dinner? In the United States, at least, I would argue that it's flour and potatoes, right? Flour is pasta, it's pizza, it's bread, potatoes, baked potato, mashed potato, more carbohydrates. And so now, literally from the moment we woke up until dinner, all we've done is kind of grazed on food, and we've caused these glucose spikes throughout the entire day. And what is the insulin? It's been pegged all day long. And then at the end of the night, how many of you it's been a long day, it's been a rough day. You know what? I'm going to have a treat. I'm going to have a cookie. I'm going to have something. I deserve it. I'm going to have that. Does this seem reasonable? Let me just ask the audience, have I just laid out a standard American diet? Yes or no? Is this fair? So what is the easiest thing that we can do to break the cycle? The easiest thing we can do is fast. Now, I have a good friend of mine, Lucy. She says that she saw this as the 4-letter word, the F word, the 4-letter F word, right? Fast. And I'm not going to lie, I was the same way. I was like, I can't fast. This is a specimen. I need to be fueled all the time. I need food. I need energy. I'm high paced. No, I'm not. I don't need to be refueled every 2 hours. That was what my mind said, but my body was just fine. I had plenty of fuel stored in the form of fat. Let's talk about that. I like talking about bears. As silly as this is, I like talking about bears. What does a bear do? In the fall, the bear grazes and grazes and grazes and grazes. He's eating all day long. Why is the bear grazing? So it gets fat. Why does it get fat? So that it can survive during hibernation. It goes into a giant fast, months-long fast. Now, as a child, we learned that was perfectly normal. It was healthy. In fact, the bear was doing it on purpose. Yet for some reason, when we talk about skipping breakfast, here it's like, whoa. I don't think that's so safe. I think you need to eat breakfast. It's the most important meal of the day. You know, breakfast is the most skipped meal of the day. Truly. If you look around you, it is the most skipped meal of the day. 70% of the population accidentally skips breakfast. They're not even meaning to. They ain't got time for it. And yet, for some reason, the other 30% of us think we have to have it, right? So, insert fasting. Now, I also like to talk about this guy, Angus Barberry. Nobody's ever heard of Angus Barberry. Let me bring up his little Wikipedia tab. So, Angus Barberry was a Scottishman. And I like telling this story. Where is that? There it is. I like telling this story because, again, people think we can't fast. Well, Angus Barberry was 456 pounds. He was a very big boy. And Angus thought that he ate too often. He was like, I think I just need to quit eating for a little while and I'll probably lose some weight. And he decided he was just going to shut it down. He was going to drink fluids, but he was going to stop eating. And going into uncharted waters, he didn't want to do this on his own. He wanted to go to his doctor, and he asked his doctor, hey, will you do me a favor and just kind of check my vitals as I'm doing this? I don't know how long I'm going to go without food. I'm going to see how long I last. And the doctor, of course, is like, I don't think that's a good idea. But yeah, I'll check your vitals. So he checked his blood pressure. He checked his blood, was constantly pulling his lipids panels just to make sure that Angus was okay throughout this fast. Now, the reason I bring this up is Angus went on to set a world record for the longest medically supervised fast, and it still holds today. Angus started his fast June 14th of 1965, and he broke it June 30th of 1966. One full year later, 382 days, Angus Barberry fasted for. Angus Barberry went from 456 pounds down to 180 pounds. Now you'd ask, how did he stay alive? He stayed alive living on all of that excess fat. All of that fat that was on his body, that's just fuel for times of famine. Well, his body was like, we must be in a famine. Time to switch over and start burning that. And he did. And he lived. And he did just fine. 382 days with no food. When he hit his target weight of 180 pounds, he broke his fast with a hard-boiled egg, a slice of toast, and a cup of coffee. What an amazing story. And so with that in mind, what we do here, our one great practice, we got 2 products, 1 practice. Our practice is to intermittent fast. And we do what's called time-restricted eating, also known as time-based eating. And so we give ourselves an eating window. Out of 24 hours in a day, we give ourselves 16 hours to fast and 8 hours to eat. Now, how does this look in practice? So at 8 p.m., most people on this program are done eating. 8 p.m. is a nice, easy number. You've already had dinner. You don't need any more food, right? 16 hours from 8 p.m. is noon the following day. Now, what do? You go to bed. You sleep. The majority of your fast is done while you're in bed. By the way, if you have a hard time sleeping, it's going to get better. So we sleep off most of that fast. Then when we wake up, we skip breakfast. Now, we don't have sugar in the coffee. We don't have the glass of orange juice. We don't have the sugary drinks. Coffee is just fine. Tea is just fine. We're going to talk about Unimate. If those others are just fine, Unimate is amazing. You will love this. Okay, so we wake up and we fast. Now, before I get too much into Unimate, if you're thinking like, every time I've tried to fast, I just find myself staring at the clock, waiting for the clock to turn to my fasting window closed. The tea, this Unimate, will get rid of that food noise. It makes fasting easy. So if you've historically struggled with fasting, if you've struggled with the food noise, the tea makes that easier. And I'm going to go into the science behind that here in just a bit. But what do we do in the morning? We skip breakfast. Okay? Now, when we get to noon, we've successfully gone 16 hours. Now we can open up our eating window, and we're going to allow ourselves 2 meals during that 8-hour window. Now, you might be saying, wait a minute, I want to have 4 meals in that time. And I'm going to say, you know what? I didn't tell you to restrict calorie size. As Dr. Ben Bickman mentioned, calories matter. They absolutely matter. But really, the key is the insulin. So we're going to start restricting the insulin. We're going to minimize the insulin by having 2 meals per day. You're going to have 1 meal, and you're going to allow the glucose and the insulin to normalize again before your next meal. We're going to keep that thing really low. Now, if weight loss is a goal, maybe down the road, once you've adjusted to the system, then you'll start to look at caloric restriction. But when you start this system, don't restrict calories. Eat a meal that's big enough and filling enough and nutritious enough that you won't want a meal until your second meal, okay? Until your next dinner. Now, at dinner, you're going to do the exact same thing, and voila, that is the one great practice. And what you're really doing is you're forcing the glucose levels to normalize. Now, remember, Dr. Bickman just told you that when we restrict the insulin, it forcibly causes the cell to shrink. In the presence of insulin, the fat cell must grow. In the absence of insulin, the fat cell must shrink. And so what we're doing is we're forcibly making that fat cell shrink. And what's that doing? That's telling your body, we're done burning glucose. Now we're going to burn fat for energy. It's amazing. It's so easy. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so the next thing is how much money are you saving while you're doing that? You're saving a lot of money. I mean, breakfast at McDonald's is $8. I hate to break it to you. By the time you get through there with tax and it's just going to be $7, $8. You can't do it. Go to Starbucks. If you get anything other than a cup of black coffee, which by the way is like $4.50, if you get anything other than a cup of black coffee, it's going to run you $6 or $7, right? Some of those drinks are like $12. Give me a break for a cup of coffee. When you start restricting your meals and you start restricting the types of foods, the snacks and that sort of thing, you're really going to start restricting the money. You're going to start saving money. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take some of those savings, you're going to be cash ahead in this, but we're going to take some of those savings and we're going to invest them into some products that will help you along the way. So let's talk about those 2 products. We've talked about the great practice, which is intermittent fasting, 16 and 8. By the way, if you wanted to go to an 18 and 6, or maybe even a 20 and 4, or hey, maybe you're feeling feisty and think, you know what, I'm going to try and just have 1 meal today. It's crazy. You feel amazing. You really do. But let's just start with 16 and 8, okay? And then if you feel like you want to go bigger, you go bigger, but a minimum of 16 and 8. Unamate. I kind of was touching on the tea just a little bit ago. Let's dig into the tea. Now, first off, the tea is available in 3 flavors with caffeine and 2 flavors without caffeine. So lemon, ginger, and raspberry pomegranate. The raspberry pomegranate's amazing. Cold. I like that one cold. I have a little soda maker with the CO2. Drinking it cold with CO2, what a great thing on a hot day. Lemon and lemon ginger. Currently, I'm drinking the lemon ginger. I absolutely love lemon ginger. I'm drinking it hot. This is a 30-ounce Yeti. I put 1 packet in here, and I'm drinking it hot, and it's amazing. Now, if you have caffeine sensitivity issues, that's where you can insert these. We've got lemon in decaf, and we've got chocolate mint in it's like a brownie chocolate mint. It's absolutely amazing. If you got the sweet tooth at the end of the night, this is amazing. Okay, let's talk about what is Unamate and why does it matter? Well, to understand Unamate, we really have to talk about yerba mate. We have to start there. So what is yerba mate? Yerba mate is a South American tea. In fact, it's the most heavily consumed beverage in South America. Number 1, by a long shot. Now, the indigenous people of the regions of South America that are now Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and parts of Uruguay, they would say that this tea gave them an amazing boost of energy. They would say that it gave them mental clarity. They would say that it was appetite. It gave them appetite suppression. So there is something inside of yerba mate that's called chlorogenic acid. Now, chlorogenic acid is a polyphenol, and really chlorogenic acid occurs in a lot of vegetation. It occurs in fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, teas. It's especially abundant in yerba mate and coffee, of all things. And because of its abundance in coffee, a lot of the research on chlorogenic acid has been done on coffee. So I'm going to really kind of point to some of that, but I want to talk about, we're going to keep the focus on yerba mate. So Let's talk about this thing called chlorogenic acid. Now, remember, our problem is insulin resistance. We are trying to, let me see, I'm going to turn this camera on. We do not want this, okay? We're trying to reverse insulin. Let me put this image up. Is that better? Okay, I like this better. Now, I want to go to Google, and I'm just going to ask Google, does chlorogenic acid reverse insulin resistance? And look at that. Yes, chlorogenic acid has been shown to improve, reduce, and potentially reverse insulin resistance. Right there, voila. I mean, it's Google proof, but it's kind of proof, right? But if we just scroll down a little bit, you'll see this right here. This is PubMed Central. That's an official website of the United States government, and that's where people host or that's where they post their research to. And that study right there was done in 2020. It's been cited by 185 people. Use of chlorogenic acid against diabetes mellitus. There you go. Check that out. If you want, click that link, read that, and then you will have done the research. If you scroll down just a little bit further, you'll see this one here. Chlorogenic acid improves glucose tolerance, lipids metabolism. Now, that's cholesterol. And again, this was published in 2022. It's been cited by 97 people. You can see it right there. If you scroll down just a little bit further, ScienceDirect.com, anti-diabetic and anti-lipidemic effects. So diabetes, cholesterol. That was published in 2013. It's been cited by 532 people. Go and read those links and do the research. The next one down, let's see, effects of chlorogenic acid administration on glycemic. Okay. Chlorogenic acid improves non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Look at that. That's cited by 125 people. Roles of chlorogenic acid on regulating gluten. Okay, so you get it. This is well studied. Why haven't you been told about it? That's the bigger question. Now, I like to go over to Google and just ask Google again, what foods have chlorogenic acid? Well, coffee, fruits, vegetables, eggplants, sunflower seeds. This is, and it even goes on to say, it is known for reducing inflammation and improving metabolic health. Voila. How many of you have inflammation issues? Now, let's talk about some of the proof, because I promised you I would show the proof. Excuse me, I got a little frog in my throat and I'm going to cough. Let me get another drink of the Unimate. Okay, this study right here. This is PubMed. It's an official website of the United States government. This was published in February of 2015. And you'll notice the title, The Effects of Chlorogenic Acid on Blood Pressure. This is a systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized clinical trials. That is very, very, very compelling research. In fact, that's kind of the gold bar standard for research. If we scroll down just a little bit, in conclusion, the evidence from published randomized clinical trials suggests that chlorogenic acid intake causes statistically significant reductions in systolic and diastolic blood pressures. Boom. That is very, very, very strong. The evidence from published randomized clinical trials suggests that chlorogenic acid intake causes statistically significant reductions in systolic and diastolic blood pressures. Now, let's just dig a little bit deeper. This study right here, chlorogenic acid improves glucose tolerance, lipids metabolism, inflammation, and microbiota composition in diabetic mice. Let's break down that title. It improves glucose tolerance. It improves lipids inflammation. How many of these do you have a problem with? Glucose, cholesterol, inflammation? Now, if you are on metformin, this study will be of particular interest to you because chlorogenic acid acts in a very similar way to metformin, and this study proves that. In fact, what they did was in the current study, diabetic mice were administered chlorogenic acid or metformin. They were given one or the other. Literally a side-by-side comparison, chlorogenic acid or metformin. So the results showed that chlorogenic acid decreased body weight, so it aided in weight loss, and improved glucose tolerance and insulin resistance. So it helped reverse the insulin resistance right there. And these effects were similar to those of metformin. See, metformin's biggest competition isn't another drug, it's chlorogenic acid, something that you find in yerba mate. Right there. Okay? These effects were similar to those of metformin. Now, this is another study, and I'm just kind of beating a drum right here. Roles of chlorogenic acid on regulating glucose and lipids metabolism. This was August of 2013. Chlorogenic acid is a novel insulin sensitizer that potentiates insulin action similar to the therapeutic action of metformin. Okay. This study right here looks at a chlorogenic acid-induced increase in GLP-1 production. Wait a minute. GLP-1. This is that hormone that I was talking about earlier. So Ozempic and Wegovy and Rybelsus, those are all something called semaglutide. They are a GLP-1 RA. Everybody refers to them as GLP-1. They really are GLP-1 RA. And the RA stands for receptor agonist. GLP-1 is glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonist. And what that is a synthetic form of GLP-1. GLP-1 is your hormone. Okay, now maybe you've heard of Manjaro or what is it? I forget the other one, but this is a tirzepatide. Okay, it's another GLP-1 RA. Now, I was on Trulicity, which again is a GLP-1 RA. Well, what this study right here is saying is, hey, wait a minute, this chlorogenic acid thing, it induces our own GLP-1 production. It makes our bodies produce our own GLP-1. Indeed, there is recent evidence that coffee increases production of the incretin hormone, glucagon-like peptide 1. Wow. Right there. Now, I like to really bring this up because I'm not going to beat this drum too hard, but, you know, there are side effects associated with the Wegovy and Ozempic and such. In fact, I'll just go here really quick. Looks like about a 58% increased risk of thyroid cancer, a 78% increased risk of medullary thyroid cancer, a 5.1% risk of gastroparesis. These are just awful, awful, awful side effects. And so what we have is something that occurs naturally in vegetation that competes with Ozempic, chlorogenic acid. Now, let's go over here, and I want to talk about this gentleman right here. His name is Dr. Andrew Huberman. If you've never heard of Dr. Andrew Huberman, you should get to know him as well. So he is a professor of neurobiology and, by courtesy of, psychiatry and behavioral sciences at Stanford. This is his profile on Stanford Medicine's website. He hosts a podcast. It's called Huberman Labs, and it's the #1 ranked health-related podcast in the world. In fact, I just saw him on a TV show the other day. He was on Bill Maher the other day. He's also been on Jimmy Kimmel. He's also been on Joe Rogan. He gets around. This guy is absolutely brilliant. And in fact, I like to kind of point out his professional education because I don't know. I think it's just impressive. He got his bachelor's from the University of Cal Santa Barbara, his master's from Cal Berkeley, his PhD from Cal Davis, and then his postdoctorate work came at Stanford. The guy is absolutely brilliant. Now, this is Andrew Huberman on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he's talking about GLP-1. More than that, he's talking about GLP-1 and yerba mate.
People won't do the thing. Right now, there's a lot of excitement about semaglutide.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a GLP-1 glucagon-like peptide. The story of that, since you like animals and the natural world, a guy down in South America was looking at Gila monsters, those really scary things, and he realized they don't have to eat very often. I wonder if they're hungry all the time or not. Turns out it takes their blood, isolates a peptide, which turns out to be GLP-1, puts it into other animals, and realizes it suppresses appetite. Amazing, right? Like this is what I love about biology. Some dude who studies Gila monsters. Turns out humans make GLP-1. GLP-1 is stimulated by things like yerba mate tea.
Yerba mate.
Certain other compounds, plant compounds, stimulate its release. But what does it do in the hypothalamus? It suppresses hunger by way of, there's a particular brain arcuate pathway, blah, blah, blah. But it also affects the mechanosensors of the gut so that you feel like your gut's full. Like it's almost like you're getting like a pharmacologic tummy, stapled stomach, right? So when people take a drug that mimics GLP-1, their brain is like, I'm not as hungry, and their stomach feels full even though it's empty.
Look at that. And they end up losing weight. Now, let's talk about Unimate. This is Unicity's product brochure on Unimate. And what Unimate is a yerba mate extract. And I want to build on that. Unicity actually owns the farms in South America. And I think that's important for the simple purpose, they're not trying to grow this South American plant in Utah. They actually went and acquired the land in that region of the world. So this isn't some sort of GMO experiment. Okay. They still pay highly skilled farmers who are very trained on when to hand harvest the leaf. We don't machine harvest, they hand harvest. They still go through and they roast it in a very similar way to the way that it's always been done. But then they do things like extract the chlorogenic acid. They extract the theobromine. They extract the mate saponins and the antioxidants. They extract all of the things that you want that are really good for us, and they concentrate it. Now, after they've concentrated it, they purify it. They get rid of the things that we don't want, things like heavy metals and pesticides and that sort of thing. And what they end up with is a quite perfect version of yerba mate. It has about 20 times the chlorogenic acid of a typical cup of yerba mate, about 10 times the chlorogenic acid of a typical cup of coffee. In fact, to my knowledge, there's nowhere else on earth that you're going to get as much chlorogenic acid in a single location as you will out of Unimate. Now, Unimate has been shown to suppress appetites. It's been shown to increase GLP-1. It's been shown to help lower blood pressure, all these things. Well, this tea is just packed full of it. So when you wake up in the morning, you're going to sip on this. I drink mine hot in about 30 ounces of water, and it takes me about 2 to 3 hours to sip on this thing. It gets rid of the food noise. It makes the fast easy. It's fasting safe. It's absolutely amazing. Kind of think of it as drinking one of these instead of eating breakfast. Kind of slide it right into that place. If you drink coffee, you can drink coffee still. That's just fine. Don't add cream and sugar to it. But try this. Just try this. Try it hot. And what happened with me was after about 2 hours, I kind of was outside of my coffee window anyway, and I kind of accidentally forgot to keep drinking coffee. Okay, so now that we've talked about that, let's talk about some research on this product. This is a study that was published in October of 2023. Now, this study was published by Dr. Ben Bickman. It was done at BYU's Laboratory of Obesity and Metabolism. This study was done on Unicity's product. In fact, you can scroll down and look at the materials and methods. You'll see the mate is from Unicity International, Provo, Utah. Dr. Bickman has actually studied. This is peer-reviewed. This is published. This is amazing research. And what Dr. Bickman says, remember, Dr. Bickman grows fat cells for a living. What Dr. Bickman says is that Unimate makes you a more efficient fat burner. It makes you burn fat better. Who doesn't want to do that? It does that for you. Now, he also observed GLP-1 production like going through the roof. Now, it wasn't part of this publication, but he observed it while he was doing this research right here. And then he went on and did a podcast where he talked about that. Now, again, that podcast, you can find it on my YouTube if you'd like. I'm going to play it for you right here. You're going to hear Dr. Bickman, again, the world's top metabolic scientist. He's going to specifically name Unimate and say that it increases GLP-1 by up to 70%. Listen to yourself.
I'll be sharing at a meeting in March in Las Vegas is that this yerba mate supplement called Unimate also increases GLP-1. We found in this experiment we did, the GLP-1 levels went up by about 70% in a fasted state, which is pretty considerable.
Look at that. 70% increase in GLP-1. So you wake up in the morning, you drink one of these. When it's gone, you drink a second one. It is such an easy program. What it's also going to do is when you do sit down to break your fast at lunch, you're going to find you just don't have the appetite that you once did. It's easier to push the plate away. It's amazing. Okay, let's talk about the second product. The second product is called Balance. To talk about balance, I really need to start with BioSlife. Okay, let's talk about this thing right here, BioSlife. Now, BioSlife, by the way, this looks like it's straight out of Max Headroom's closet, right? 1980s. Look at that digital look thing. You'll notice on the back, it was Rexall Pharmacy. Maybe you remember Rexall Pharmacy. At one point, that was the largest pharmacy chain in North America. Now, I'm going to talk about BioSlife. It's still around today. But I'm also going to talk about Balance. And you will see that Balance and BioSlife, they are the same thing. You see, these products, they're the same product, BioSlife and Balance. They're available in over 60 countries globally. BioSlife was developed by Rexall Pharmacy in the late 80s, put to market in 1990. This is BioSlife in South Korea, Saudi Arabia, Australia. We're going to talk a lot about BioSlife. So what BioSlife is a blend of 7 different plant-based fibers and a multivitamin. Now, Rexall Pharmacy knew in the 80s that the food industry was overly processing our food. They were stripping the things that we need, like fiber, like vitamins and that sort of thing. They were taking it out. And what Rexall thought was, hey, if we put those together, would that be beneficial? And more than that, what if we didn't just do one type of fiber like some of their competitors? What if we had like a blend, like a diverse blend of different fibers? And so they went and they looked at what fiber is best for triglycerides, what fiber is best for LDL, what fiber is best for glucose regulation. And they put those together. And then they paired it with a multivitamin. See, BioSlife is a full multivitamin, so full B complex, B6, B9, B12, riboflavin, niacin, thiamine, chromium, zinc. It's a full multivitamin. Put the two together. Now that thing changed the world. In fact, the Cleveland Clinic, let me just jump over here really quick. The Cleveland Clinic, if you go to Google and ask Google, what is the top heart hospital in the United States? The Cleveland Clinic will tell you, or the Google will tell you it's the Cleveland Clinic. Now, why do I bring them up? Because this study right here, this again, it's an official website of the United States government, fiber and multivitamin combination therapy. This was done at the Cleveland Clinic. In fact, this is the actual publication, Metabolism Journal. You can read this, but this is what they call a double-blind, placebo-controlled, randomized clinical trial. It was peer-reviewed, it was published, and as you can see right here, it's been cited 20 times. Now, if you want to read the entire thing, you can go to unicityscience.org and look at it. It's right here. It's fiber and combination therapy. By the way, go check it out, unicityscience.org. And you'll see the preventative cardiology section of the Cleveland Clinic. And if we scroll down just a little bit, they're going to talk about BioSlife 2. Check that out. This product right here, the fiber tested, was BioSlife 2. And what they found was that after 6 weeks, by the end of the interim visit, which was 4 weeks after the blinded phase, the treatment group demonstrated significantly lower LDL-C than the placebo group, and that trend continued through the next 4 weeks to the end of the blinded phase. So people on BioSlife 2 demonstrated significantly lower LDL. That's the bad cholesterol. In fact, if you just scroll down a little bit further, you can see the numbers. You can actually go and read and do the research on what the Cleveland Clinic said BioSlife C did to LDL numbers right there. Go do the research. And you can scroll down just a little bit further and see that they concluded such a product, if taken regularly, could reduce cardiovascular risk on a population basis and potentially decrease the need and or dose for lipid-lowering prescription drugs. The Cleveland Clinic, more than 20 years ago, did a double-blind, placebo-controlled, randomized clinical trial. They published it. It was peer-reviewed. They published it, and it's been cited 20 times. And they said that it could potentially decrease the need and or dose for lipid-lowering prescription drugs. Those are statins. This is proof. Now, something else I want to talk about, and I was pretty dead set on talking about this today. What is the home of the glycemic index? Maybe some of you have heard of the glycemic index, but this right here, this will tell you that the home of the glycemic index is the University of Sydney, Australia. Moreover, the primary researchers, it's led by Professor Jenny Brand Miller. Now, if we go to glycemicindex.com, it will take you to the University of Sydney, Australia. Now, before I go much further, I want to just talk about Dr. Jenny Brand Miller. This is her Wikipedia page. Dr. Jenny Brand Miller is an absolute powerhouse. What you'll notice over here in the birth area, right? 1952, alma mater was the University of New South Wales. Her spouse, Dr. John James Miller. Now, Dr. John James Miller, that's an interesting one. Dr. John James Miller was the medical director for Novo Nordisk for decades. Now, Novo Nordisk is the parent company to Ozempic. That's who makes Ozempic. That's her husband. This is an absolute powerhouse of a couple when we're talking about glucose regulation. But I want to come back to Dr. Jenny Brand Miller. We're not talking about her husband. We're talking about her. If you hit the About page on the University of Sydney, Australia, it will talk about her. Professor Jenny Brand Miller is an internationally recognized authority on carbohydrates and the glycemic index with over 250 scientific publications. Again, powerhouse. Now, why do I talk about Dr. Jenny Brand Miller? Because this study right here, the effects of a fiber-rich nutritional supplement, BIOS Life Slim. Dr. Jenny Brand Miller, the University of Sydney, Australia, for Unicity International. Now, this study was really interesting. They gave test patients white bread, white rice, mashed potato. And what they observed was that in each case, it lowered the glycemic as well as the insulin index from high to medium. And what that really means is it took a food that was bad for you and made it a little bit better. In layman's terms, it took a bad food and made it better. Okay? Now, if we go a little bit further, Dr. Jenny Brand Miller, she wasn't done. She studied it a second time. And this time she gave test patients white bread. That's literally a 100 out of 100 on the glycemic index. There are few things that are worse for you than white bread. And here in the US, we eat it 3 times a day. But this study right here, she gave test patients white bread. And the results were amazing. With one single serving of BIOS Life, she observed a 20% reduction in blood glucose levels. Now think about that. If when you're done eating, you're used to having a blood glucose level of like 300, well, that would mean that you were down like 60 points. It'd be 240. Think about that. That's amazing. I'm sorry. Yeah, 240. 2 servings was a 28%. Again, absolutely massive. Now, because we know insulin is the problem, she observed that too. There was a 13 to 27% reduction in blood insulin levels. And so when you have people like myself saying, hey, I reversed type 2 diabetes, maybe now you're starting to understand why. There is a product out there that literally competes with metformin. It literally competes with the GLP-1s. It's absolutely amazing. Now, how does this work in practice? So what do we do in practice? Let me turn that screen off. And I have an amazing testimonial here coming up in just a moment. How does this work? First off, The system costs $159 per month. That is a 30-day supply. And again, remember, when we're fasting, the money that you're using that you're saving during your fast, a portion of that's going to cover this $159 easily. Now, the beauty is Unicity is HSA and FSA certified, so you can use your health savings accounts, you can use your flex spending accounts, you can use those funds on this product. They also accept Apple Pay, so if you have an Apple user, you can use Klarna, you can use PayPal. There's options to get the product ordered. Unicity offers a 90-day money-back guarantee. Now, just a few other things here. Both of these products are in the physician's desk reference. That is where your doctor goes to look up information about commonly prescribed medications, things like Ozempic, things like metformin. They go there and they look up the contraindications, the side effects, the adverse reactions, the drug interactions, the dosing considerations. That's where they turn. That is their trusted book. Now, both of these products, and I'm going to add to that, 19 products for Unicity are in the PDR. Yerba mate is not in the PDR, nor is Metamucil. These are not like the other things. They are not medications, so there's no side effects. You can just insert these alongside your normal everyday routine. And what they guarantee is that if you just insert these into your life, as you're living life right now and pair it with the intermittent fasting, they guarantee you're going to lower your blood glucose. They guarantee you're going to lower your cholesterol. They guarantee you're going to lower your blood pressure. They guarantee it. If you're not satisfied for any reason, ask for a refund. Now, what I want to do is I want to bring in Mr. David here, and I'm hoping that his camera is working because David has had an absolutely amazing experience on these products. And I don't know if you're there, David.
I'm here.
Are you
Can
there,
you hear me?
sir?
Can you
Are
hear
you
me?
there?
Can you hear
There
me?
you are. How are you, sir?
Good. Hold on just 1 second. Sorry.
No, you're fine. David, I appreciate you coming on with me. I know this was kind of short notice, but you have such an amazing story. I really kind of just wanted to ask you to kind of tell your story. Where were you at before you started this program, and where are you at today? I'm going to give you the mic. I'm going to highlight you. Take it away, sir.
Well, we're just going to go back to 33 years ago. I stood by my mother's casket. I buried her at 10 years old. She was 33. It's been 33 years ago, and she was 33. And 13 months ago, I found myself. My family was just about to do that to me. I had 3 near-death experiences last February. My body had bent straight over. My blood sugar was 8.9. My high blood pressure was 220 over 180. And the doctors, I fell sick last February. I was already sick for about 2 years, but I was just getting worse and worse and worse. And he told me I had inherited all this from my mom. And so I just believed him. He just kept increasing and kept increasing all my dosages. But somebody noticed, one of my friends that I had met over this social media, just like the people seeing us right now, he called me up. He said, I've noticed that you're not going live anymore. And I could only talk about 3 minutes. I was on oxygen. I couldn't lay back. I had every sign of congestive heart failure. And so he said, I want to give you this. I want to give you this stuff. And I thought, well, that's a Ponzi scheme. He said, I'm going to give it to you. And I said, well, there ain't nothing for you in Alabama. I guess I'm just coming to get it. And on day 7, I didn't have to get out of bed without my wife's help. And on day 14, I laid all my meds down. On week 3, all my skin tags fell off. I started at 247. My body's completely straightened up. My blood pressure's now 107 over 70. I'm now 177 pounds. I'm a walking, I'm a breathing, and I'm alive. And now my wife, hey, and I got 33 people following me on this journey, and they're all my special friends. I got one friend, he was housebound. his blood sugar was 3 to 500, and he had irritable bowel syndrome. On day 7, he said, "I'm free. I'm leaving my house. My irritable bowel's gone." And on day 11, he sent me. I got all this on my phone too. This ain't nothing. Hey, I just dreamed up. It's all on my phone. He texted me. He said, "Listen, it's a day 11," and he sent me a picture. His sugar was 94. It's 5 months. He's 5 months in, and his sugar, it ain't come back. I got another friend. She couldn't lose no weight. She's down 50 pounds. My daughter has had acid reflux her whole life. The very first month on this protocol, and she's been on it about 6 months, her hair's grown 6 to 7 inches. Her acid reflux has not come back, and she's down about nearly 30 pounds. My wife, her snoring left. At least I sleep better. And she's lost 43 pounds. And she's able to go to the bathroom every day, and before she couldn't go at all. So I could just go on and on and on about this because it has just changed my life. I love that it's changed my life. But to change my friend's life, now that's it. Now it really gets personal because people watches me and they're like, "Well, I believe you. I've known you for 25 years. You ain't gonna lie to me. I've heard all this stuff in the last, it's been on this 9 months, and I'm not the same human I was 9 months ago. I'm not even the same person at all, zero. In my mind, in my body, in everything you can imagine, my whole outlook of life has changed just by taking some all natural products. That's it.
I love it.
That's all I've done.
I love it.
So,
I love it.
anyways, there's your elevator story. Turned up 3 times. It's a treat.
Brother David, this is kind of just this is low hanging fruit, but I'm going to ask the question because I like low hanging fruit. There's a lot of skeptics watching this right now, and they're saying, "Yeah, whatever. It's too good to be true." You've got 30 seconds. What do you say to that skeptic?
Well, I was a skeptic myself. I had an Uncle James called me about 6 months ago. He said, "Well, how long you got to take this?" And I said, "Listen, I was on $5,000 worth of medication, and I was dying." And I said, "Now I'm alive, and I'm 74 pounds down, and I'll never come off of it, ever." I said, "You can choose what you want to after you become metabolically healthy, but I choose to stay forever." I said, "I'm a lifer." So there you go.
I love that, brother. David, your energy is infectious, man. And I love your story. I love your story. I think as much as I love your story, I love the fact that in addition to your story, obviously your wife and your daughter are doing the same. I think it speaks volumes for a product when people share it with their children.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, my son, he's pretty stubborn about stuff. And about 2 weeks ago, he said, "Dad," he said, "I'm ready." So we signed him up.
That's awesome. All right, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you. Go be with your family. David, you're amazing.
I want to hear you say 2 words. You ready?
Go for it.
Repeat after me. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. See you, brother.
Oh, goodness. Y'all have a good night. I appreciate you having me up. It's always a joy to talk about this product.
David, you're amazing. Thanks, buddy.
Y'all have a good night. Bye-bye.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up with that, but I do want to leave on what energy. The guy has amazing energy. How are you not just excited after listening to David? Okay. I do want to touch on something real quick. If there's been something that I've said throughout this live stream that has resonated with you, if there's something that I've said that you said, "Hey man, I like the way that sounds." If you find yourself, as I did, kind of looking for a higher purpose, you're looking for something, you want to make an impact, you're trying to define your legacy, you're trying to do something along those lines. If you feel like there's more of a calling for you than what you're doing, and you want to learn more about this referral program, get with the person who sent you to this live stream, and they'll tell you all about that. Okay. We are always looking for good people. I like to tell a quick story. I have completely unrealistic expectations of completely eradicating type 2 diabetes. Currently in the United States, this is from the Centers for Disease Control, there are 38 million diabetics. It's estimated that 90 to 95% of them are type 2. there are 98 million pre-diabetics. When you put those two numbers together, we're talking about 135 million-ish people that are either pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetic, conditions that are completely reversible. I want to see that happen. And I believe these products can help us get there. But I can't do it by myself. I can't do it on this. I want more people to watch these live streams, but I can't do it by myself. We're looking to help. We're looking to find people that are interested in sharing the good word. So if there's been something that I've said that's kind of resonated with you and you're like, you know what, I think I want to learn more about that, just get with the person who invited you to this live stream. In addition, if you want to try these products, get with that same person. They will share their link, their referral link with you and get you started on your system. Go into this thing with a 90-day mindset. Go into it with a conviction of, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I want to try something completely new. I'm going to try something. It's probably going to be a little bit uncomfortable to begin with, but you will be absolutely amazed at how easy it is and how sustainable it is once you get into your rhythm. Now, David is asked to come back in for one more thing, and now he's gone. I was going to bring you in, David. Looks like he's gone. You guys have a wonderful week. I would encourage you that if you heard something that you liked this week, come back next week. By the way, that does remind me, if you don't want to listen to some random barbecue dude talk about this, if you want to listen to a medical doctor talk about this, there are plenty of medical doctors doing live streams and Zoom meetings talking about this exact same thing. Get with the same person who invited you here, and they'll share a medical doctor's link with you. You can go listen to them talk about it. And I get it. You're more comfortable with listening to a doctor say it, that's fine. That's the beauty of this. There are so many people involved with this thing right now. We're going to change the world. Come back next week. Bring your friends, bring your family, bring your sister, bring your mother, bring everybody you can to next week's live stream. Oh, here he is. David's back. Yes, sir.
I forgot. I want to say one thing that I don't know why I forgot about this. I had my mind. I'm sorry. I just got through eating dinner. I had my mind on all that stuff, you know. We all have goals and dreams in this life. But when we hit things, sometimes it just, you know, this company, this product has inspired and changed me so much in 9 months. This is news for you, but I'm dying to tell you. You're just going to hear it anyways. I've always wanted to write a book. It's done. It's published. It's on Amazon.
That's awesome, buddy. I'm so happy for you, brother. Okay, you guys, everybody have a wonderful week. Come back